on this computer. Okay. All right. Now we're recording. Hi, everybody. Um, okay, so I'll go ahead and go first here. Let's see. I have not been doing a lot of Python stuff. I mentioned since we didn't meet 2 weeks ago. I mentioned in Zulip that I finished resource support in commoditized Pi. So that's nice, and it's especially important since WASM 14 now uses the latest WASI wits, which use resources across the board. That was part of one of the big changes in that release. So you kind of have to have resources if you want to use any of that. And what else? I think that's pretty much it. I don't have any immediate plans to be working on Python related stuff in the near future. We're working on a Spin 2.0 release here in a couple weeks, and the bigger picture is trying to get WASI Preview 2 shipped, and I've been contributing to that in various ways. Nothing particularly Python specific. That's all I got. Go, Brett.
All right. Now that I said no, I am talking on purpose with my hand up. And put that manually. Yeah, so I've been working on WASI.py script to automate more of the cross build of CPython just because there's enough little details to put in there. I thought I was at MVP short of verifying that macOS worked, but WASM 14 changed that because now I had to add a flag that I thought was optional to specify the WASI runtime for builds to have to exist in case, depending on which CLI flags you got to specify for your WASM runtime. In case everyone doesn't know, WASM 14 completely changed the flags. So that makes map deer now into deer, and I got to support that. But once that's in, hopefully that'll get us one step closer to getting Python to a tier 2 supported language, because that should hopefully make it easier for everyone else to just do a build for WASI and just have it work. The other thing is I should be getting hopefully a build bot up soon, because theoretically Ralph Squillis is going to cut me off from his free Azure credits that he's been giving me for the WebAssembly build bots at the end of the month. But obviously I work with Ralph at Microsoft, so he's not really dying. So if I go over, he's not going to kill me. I will say once that's done, I will probably be talking to Anaconda about no longer being the person on the hook for Inscriptin, just because work doesn't care about Inscriptin. And I don't care about Inscriptin, and yet I'm the person who's helping keep it going, so probably going to drop that. I should also let this group know my wife is pregnant, due date in late March, which means I will be on paternity leave for about 3 months or so. So I probably won't be back until about July. So I'll hopefully see all of you until you all goodbye before I disappear for a bit. But just in case I forget for some odd reason and you wonder where the hell did Brett go in April, May, and June, that's where Brett went. And then I have an agenda item to discuss what kind of staffing it would take to get Python and WASI, especially in the browser, working well with the data science stack. And I'll give maybe more clarification when we talk about it, although I can only give so much clarification.
And is that separate from the Pyodide effort?
Yes. Completely separate. But that can be an agenda item. Doesn't have to. I don't have to do this right now.
Yeah, I just added it to the agenda.
Thanks.
We should probably give you a little update, Brett, about the WASM 14 CLI stuff. As Bailey and I were both in the WASM meeting this morning where we were discussing that.
Yeah, I was talking with crap. I'm stuck with names.
Alex.
Alex. So yeah, Alex. I pointed Alex to my little survey of CLI flags for WASM 14, and he tweets the --dir and all that. I totally support the changes. It's just I just have to make sure that you can specify. I was going to do the thing anyway so that you could use WASM Edge or WASM Time or WAS0 or whatever. But this just kind of forces the issue for me a bit more. It's no big deal. I was going to do it anyway. So if you still want to give me an update, I'm still happy to hear. But
the discussion this morning was just that we are are not fully satisfied with how we did that change, and we're going to do a point release, I think, with trying to give backwards compatibility for the old form of the command line flags
Gotcha.
for at least some number of releases. So
Bit too abrupt.
yeah, too abrupt.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. I mean, as I said, I was going to add the feature anyway, but nice to hear. I can understand. I'm sure you're getting a bit of blowback because it's probably just enough people now using WASM time in some script somewhere. It's like, like you just broke all my GitHub action CIs or something. It's like, because I bet no one pinned because everyone's just been going up versions and just, totally understand. Hopefully it won't be too painful to do the backwards compatibility for y'all though.
Yeah, here's hoping.
Exactly. I don't think any of the names clash from what I saw though, so it shouldn't hopefully be more of a translation in the Rust code to the new stuff, and then just.
There's also difference in semantics over how it decides where the WASM time options end and the options being passed to your guest program start.
I always just use -- did that change?
A little bit. If I think what folks said this morning was that as long as the -- comes before the name of the WASM module, then it works in both old and new.
Comes before. Oh, that's a new one. I always did it after everything.
Yeah, and with the new command line parser, that will pass -- to the WASM module as its first argument.
Shit, yeah, that is a bit of a break. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
Joel, are you guys for your 2.0, are you looking for the WASI Cloud interfaces too?
Just
we
WASI
haven't
HTTP.
been. Okay, all right. I was gonna say we've been slow rolling, at least from the folks that try to maintain the WASI stuff, the WASI Cloud, so that we could finish the other two, the worlds that we said we're gonna need to launch preview 2. I actually was updating it today, but that's like I'm in a meeting, let me like boop a few things kind of thing, but I could focus a little bit harder if that's what you need.
Yeah, it's really just WASI HTTP. I mean, we've been collaborating with Microsoft. We'd like to see WASI key value and WASI messaging mature a little bit, but my understanding is that the parts of WASI that are really going to be part of WASI Preview 2 right now, which isn't to say they couldn't be added on a point release later on, or other things, are WASI CLI, WASI HTTP, WASI sockets. And so that's what we're kind of focusing on right now with Spin. But obviously we want to be involved with the other stuff that's going on as well.
Yeah, we landed everything for 14 earlier this week with all of the host or all the world files, WASI HTTP proxy and WASI CLI command and reactor inside our host. We did run into an issue with the incoming handler, but outgoing handler was fine, and I think Roman was following up on the WASM time side on that. And I noticed, I think I looked at the Spin support this week for the HTTP side of things, and it looked like you might have avoided the incoming handler problem. So that's why I didn't ping you, because the way Ryan implemented it was with outgoing. So that's my update there. Sorry, I'm trying to get us all implementing it so that we can feel really confident on 14. Then 15 might be the one for preview 2.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's just we have to draw a line and say this is the deadline, and you either catch the bus or miss the bus, and and then we stop making changes. Cool. So any other status updates before we move on to other agenda items? Okay. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is, I skipped last week because I didn't have anything and it didn't seem like anybody else had anything. Do we want to consider making this more of a every 4-week cadence rather than every 2 weeks? or we could do something like where we keep it on the calendar for every 2 weeks, but we are, we cancel aggressively if there's nothing to discuss, or anybody have any feelings about that?
I'm fine with either. I will say chances are after I come back in July, I'll be very likely ending up back as an IC instead of a manager, which gives me more time for this sort of stuff.
Nice.
So I might have more updates more frequently, but I also don't want to promise 6 months out in advance that will actually happen. So that makes me want to say, well, the aggressive canceling works well for me, because if that comes to fruition, fantastic. And if it doesn't, I don't feel bad.
Hey, Joel, would it be okay if I add a little item? It looks like I'm actually getting pulled out of this meeting to go to a different one now.
Sure.
And I already was dodging a meeting earlier because of the bat signal that this wasn't working. So I wanted to see if you guys would be available on certain dates for Plumber Summit, or if you're going to be going to WASM.io. I'll send a more formal survey, but my favorites get priority. I'm going to ask you first, and then that informs the dates that I put into the survey. So the working theory now, Fermion's offsite is the first week of Feb. So I'm thinking end of January for an offsite on the East Coast of the US, or February 13th East Coast, or co-located to WASM.io in Barcelona. So I guess my first question is well, I'm assuming not all of this group is going to make it out to WASM Day in Chicago on November 5th, 6th, one of those days. I think it's 6th. So if we were to hold a Plumber Summit, which is trying to plan out road mapping and the work that we're going to do for Preview 3, and any of the iterative work that we want to get in that's additive to Preview 2, if we were just having some sessions like that were going to be in person, would you all be interested in attending? And did any of those jump out to you? Because I know that's before baby, it sounds like, for you, Brett.
Oh yeah, I'm screwed. So no chance in hell for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to cut down on travel a little bit too, so I would be very, very interested in a remote option if that's a possibility. The last Plumbers Conference had that, and I felt like it worked pretty well.
You think it did? Okay, I got mixed feedback. Okay.
I liked it, but yeah, I guess. Yeah.
At worst, Joel, you and I can do one.
Yeah. That's right.
You guys in the same neighborhood?
No, I'm in Vancouver, Canada, so I think I'm on the opposite coast of most of actually all of you. So
okay,
I'm in Denver, so right in the middle. But...
I'm without a coast.
So where?
Yeah.
So where are you, Joel?
Denver, and you're in Oklahoma,
Denver.
right, Kevin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not too far away from each other.
Yeah. Road trip.
I'm in Portland, so I'm not so far from you.
Oh, there you go. All right. Except that maybe Jamie will fly out, so he'll be on that coast instead of this coast. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you guys have any strong preferences, do ping me. All right, I'm gonna bounce. Right. Sorry about the Zoom issues.
No worries. Thank you.
Good luck in the next meeting.
Okay, so it looks like I've added that to the agenda, but we sort of worked through it already. So yeah, contact Bailey if you have any thoughts on Plumbers Conference. Okay, and meeting frequency. So a slight vote in favor of kind of keeping it on for every 2 weeks, but canceling as necessary. Any other thoughts? That would be fine with me.
That works because then it's blocked out in my calendar and nobody else will put something there.
There we go. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll have a free hour.
Okay. Okay, so let me just note that. Okay.
By the way, I have to compliment Jamie for having some of his books perfectly turned for the camera. I don't know if that's just to promote those books to everyone in the meetings or if that's just nice happenstance, but I do appreciate the art of programming with the programming rest book on top. I can't make out the spines on the other ones, but
that maybe this as well. Some of them I possibly shouldn't be displaying in recorded work meetings.
Anarchist handbook or something like that.
Unions.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's see, where are we? Let's see. Oh yeah, next steps. Okay, so I was just we sort of already talked a little bit about this, about what Brett's doing with CPython, with automating the cross builds and kind of moving towards that tier 2 status. Next steps for componentized Pi. Again, as I mentioned, I'm not planning on actively working on this except as you know, my work at Fermion requires it. I'm probably going to add WIT version support to componentized Pi. That should be pretty quick to add. I actually just added that to componentized JS for Guy, since he's distracted with other things. But otherwise, I think the next big steps with componentized Pi is to integrate some sort of package management capability, whether it's like just shelling out to pip or, you know, something like that. But being able to kind of just have that be your one-stop shop to, you know, you give it your Python app and it downloads the dependencies and does all the things. I think that'd be really cool. I don't know when that's going to happen. And then otherwise it's just sort of maintenance chores, like, you know, as preview 2 continues to mature, hopefully sooner rather than later, get on, you know, stay up to date with that. Any other thoughts on that? On I mean, and then the, you know, the only other things I guess I was thinking of is, you know, as you know, we really want to start talking about, you know, post preview 2 things like, you know, first class async in the component model and threading. I saw, Brett, you know, I think you have a build of the threading stuff, which of course is not compatible with the component model, but we want to start, you know, trickling that stuff in. I think that would, if you saw Luke's presentation at the main SIG guest languages meeting, he kind of talked about the vision of the first step of threading is being able to just thread within a component without kind of having multiple threads cross the component boundaries.
Yeah, I will admit the current threaded build is busted because I didn't, when the support was added to CPython's configure.ac file, you didn't have to export memory for WASM time. Now you do. That's now been updated. So the current ones available don't work, but the next release of Python, when I do my next set of builds, should work fine.
Nice.
No, that's great. No, I think I missed that meeting. So, but no, that's good to hear that they're working on that. I noticed the W3C, can't remember what the C stands for in CG, pushed the thread model for WASM upstream to phase 4, was it?
Nice.
If I read that correctly from the Discord server notes.
Cool.
So
I think for me, our bigger priority, I'm kind of off WASM for a while, just until preview 2 comes out and we can integrate it into our database engine. So until that happens, I'm kind of stuck, you know. But I know that the first thing that's going to hit me is trying to thin down what gets packaged into the component as far as the standard library. That's going to kill us having 200 megabyte, you know, WASM file. So, you know, the threading and all that is nice and async, but, you know, to me, it's going to be optimizing, you know, the WASM.
What is the native async, by the way? Is that literally just support for like select, or
no? It's so both preview 1 and preview 2 have had this thing. Well, in preview 1 it was called pull one off, in preview 2 it's called pull list, but it's a function. It's kind of like the equivalent of epoll on Linux and you know, KQ on Mac and that sort of thing. Or you know, select or pull, you know, being more traditional POSIX. But the goal with the component model is to have sort of component model level composable async, where this idea that you can have because right now only one component, like if you've got a composed component that's made of several subcomponents, which is, you know, part of the point of the component model is to be able to do that, you know, in a polyglot fashion. You can only have one of them call into the host that pull list function. And so and there's no way to virtualize it. So like anything dealing with IO is not really effectively virtualizable in the sense that you can kind of like, wrap a socket in some sort of virtual socket and like filter the bytes going in and out of that thing, on behalf of another component. But whereas the preview 3 vision of async would be virtualizable, and you could have, each component have multiple async tasks outstanding and be able to kind of call back and forth, between components in an asynchronous fashion, in a way that's not currently supported. Jamie, do you have
And then async becomes part of the component model as a like fundamental thing, rather than being tied to IO specifically.
Interesting.
I think is the other key piece of that.
Yeah. I guess
Good
it's
luck.
not technically tied to IO right now, since you can block on clock, timer events and stuff like that. But yes, it's really composability, and that async functions are a first class thing. It's not just a synchronous function that happens to. Yeah. I mean, there's not even really all functions are synchronous when you call into the guest from the host. And there's not really any notion of asynchronous functions right now. It would just be calling back into the host. You can call a function that's synchronous, but then returns immediately and can give you a pullable that you can then call pull list again. So you're kind of doing that trampolining and whatnot yourself, the way you would with a low level, system like that. But here there would be you could actually call async functions in an async way across component boundaries between the guest and the host, etc.
And by making it a first class thing of at the interfaces, you can have different definitions of how async is implemented in different runtimes and have them interop correctly and all of that.
So for example, Go routines could be implemented using some variant of the stack switching proposal for WASM, where you can actually, for Linux or Python, I'm sorry, for Rust or Python or JavaScript, it's not that big a deal because they have what are essentially stackless coroutines. But Go routines are very stack full and would need that stack switching support of some kind.
Hey, as long as we end up with something like ePoll or KQ, Python's happy.
Yeah, and you will have that for preview 3. Technically, you had that. I'm sorry, you will have that for preview 2, and technically you had it for preview 1 in a sense. And in fact, I actually have an example in the componentized Pi repo where it actually registers a custom async IO. What's the term? Executor or poll thing.
Yeah.
And it's based on poll list, and it will allow you to do async in a way, the way you would in a very idiomatic way. So we'll have that for preview 2. It's just that when you try to compose that with other components, it gets awkward, and like virtualization is extremely difficult and so on. And if you don't care about any of that, then then great. Preview 2 has all the answers, but a lot
Did
of
you get that
do.
work by compiling against preview 2? Because I have a coworker who tried to get async IO just to import using my builds from using preview, I guess preview 1, just using WASI SDK 20, and there's an import error because sockets aren't defined yet.
Oh yeah, so I have there's no socket support. So let me point you to what I do have here.
What did you get that hack something?
Yeah, I mean, I it's one of the examples I've added to componentized Pi to kind of show off various capabilities. The HTTP example, I'll link to it here.
Because he fails right at the import level, so I'm assuming you had to do something nasty to make that work.
Yeah, if you dig into app.py, that's where things happen. Yeah, you import async IO. Yeah, everything. This works. This example works. I've run it. I did not have any import issues. I did have to make sure that I call set event loop with my custom loop. But other than that, it worked great.
Oh, maybe that's why. Because I think he got the default event loop.
Yeah. If you tried to use the default event loop, you're probably going to have problems.
Yeah.
And eventually, of
Yep,
course,
that was it. That was literally what triggered it.
Yeah. Eventually, we want that to work, of course. But
yes, please.
Yeah. One thing at a time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Let's see. Back to
that makes sense.
Here. Okay, so yeah, preview 3, we can bring composable async and all those benefits. The notes are going to be kind of sparse here. It's hard to participate and type.
Yeah,
but got the recording if you want the details. Okay. Any other thoughts on next steps for Python? I guess part of it is just, it's the usual, it's resources and staffing. It's like, whatever gets done next is what people have, time to do and energy to do and backing from their respective employers.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. And so, yeah, your item is next, Brett. Do you want to talk a little bit
Yeah.
more?
Without naming names, there is a group at Microsoft that would like to get Python working in the browser, but would also eventually probably want to get it working on the desktop. They're happy to have that be WASI if it makes sense. And I had a meeting with them, and they just asked me, if we could throw money at this problem, or which also includes throwing people at the problem, how much people / money would it take to make WASI work on both the desktop and the browser for Python?
Mhm.
So I just want to talk it through with all of you before I go back to them with a rough guess to make sure that I'm not misaligned here. And this is to effectively get Python working in a fairly restricted environment with the science stack roughly working. We're talking like NumPy, Pandas. I don't even think SciPy necessarily has to be in there. I'd have to look. But just think at worst the science stack. It doesn't have to have crazy networking or file access or anything like that. This is partially why they actually like the WebAssembly, the WASI security model and all that for this. But I was just trying to think it through with them, other than obviously want to get Python to tier 2 for just kind of stability guarantees. I would figure we might need to get the DL-Sim, DL-Open stuff working to make it just easier to compose those. Get those packages that they do want somehow built for WASI. I'm assuming some polyfill to the extent that they need polyfills from the WASI runtime that they'd run in the browser. But once again, they're fairly restricted, so I don't think they'd even have to fill in all of whatever they're going to do. Like, I guess the proper terms is the worlds they would need working are probably pretty restricted. I can't think of anything else other than all of that I'm missing, unless the rest of you can think of something. And if they said we want this in a year's time solved, is that a one-person job? Is that a two-person job? Is it throwing money at the Bytecode Alliance? Like, what do we all think is a reasonable answer here in terms of that?
I can start to answer that.
Yeah, go for it.
If you're ready. Well, first of all, like in terms of running in the browser, I think that's really what JCO is all about. If I don't know how familiar you are with the guys' work on JCO, but and in fact, that is one of the requirements for that we've set for ourselves in the WASI subgroup to release Preview 2 is to have 2 independent implementations, and the 2 independent implementations we are aiming for are WASM time, which is more or less done, modulo last minute changes to the WIP files, and JCO, which is designed to run both in the browser and on Node.js. And that is looking really good. We're scrambling to kind of get the last bits. Part of it involves like an asyncify transformation to make
Asyncify again.
Yeah, just because this is the only way we can kind of link up promises with, and have some sort of pull list like thing that works in the browser context. So Guy is actively and people from Microsoft, I believe, are actually contributing to that. Yosh is working and
yeah,
maybe
and I think my teammate Dirk is helping out too, because he wrote a bunch the WASI work he's done in VS Code. I think he's trying to upstream a chunk of it because he already wrote a bunch of, I can't know if it's WIT file parsing or something that he wrote. He's trying to help upstream for JCO. I knew of it. I didn't realize it was actually a WASI runtime specifically in JavaScript, which is interesting.
That's the idea. And should handle everything. I'm not sure how sockets will work necessarily, and file systems and stuff like that. I know I mean, you could imagine things that kind of would tunnel or whatever, but yeah, the idea is to have pretty much everything work there. So yeah, I think that's, I mean, certainly it sounds like Microsoft's already putting time and money into that. So, you know, I
Yeah.
think just more of that would be good to just make it go faster. I think from what all the stuff you described, I don't know, and Kevin, maybe you can chime in here. Is Pandas, it sounded like SciPy wasn't a huge priority. Is Pandas, does that have substantial Fortran components to it?
I don't think it has any.
Yeah, I don't think it had any. I mean, I was able to get pandas running, so
Okay.
I think, yeah, SciPy is special in its Fortran bits. And
Yeah.
I think after that, NumPy and all that's like, do you have OpenBlast installed when you do the build?
Well, okay, yeah. So I mean, OpenBlast, of course, is very much Fortran, has a lot of Fortran in it. So
I
you
think it
can
might be
when you
optional.
build NumPy, for example, you don't use OpenBlast. You like use these built-in slow versions of various things.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, it really, yeah. The only other thing that I heard you say there that sounded like it wasn't pretty much already on track is yeah, just how much of that stack that you want has Fortran dependencies, and how close is, say, L-Fortran or some sort of hacky thing ported from Pyodide to covering those cases.
Okay.
So
So effectively, if we said if there was one, if they had like roughly one full-time person for a year, does it seem like that'd be a reasonable amount of people to get this all pulled together and working?
I mean, it's in the details. Again, it's like
Oh yeah.
that it's
Once
that
again, this is
Fortran
hand wavy for people who are potentially willing to throw money at the problem. It's like, yeah, you can probably do a person and see how it goes, and if you need more, hire more. But yeah, it's to give them just a rough estimate. No one's going to shoot me if I get this wrong. It's more just they want to know how feasible it is to know whether or not they should do Pyodide first just to get it up and going in the browser, because browser is first, desktop second.
Yeah.
And then they can their restrictions are such that they could probably just swap out for WASI later. But they might go, well, you know, if it's close enough, we'll have a look. But if that's all it's going to take for these steps to happen to make this work, then maybe we'll just put the effort into there, and then we'll just launch once that's ready to go. And then it's not even worry about trying to make Pyodide shoehorn in first just to get up and going faster.
I have a question. Are they requiring this to be dynamically loaded like the current
No.
Python? Or because right now, if you build a Python component, you have to know ahead of time which libraries are going to get bundled in, and then
That's totally fine. This is such a restricted environment. Everything you're going to need that's not Python source code is already known ahead of time.
I mean, honestly, I think you could probably get the desktop one done in a few weeks. You know, it's the browser one that's totally unknown. But
yeah, I'm not. Yeah, and that unfortunately that's the one they want the most.
Well, it should work. I mean, J-Code should do it. I mean, it comes down to the only thing that's missing right now for J-Code, in my understanding, is obviously, well, preview 2 itself shipping, of course, but that you know, there's not. I mean, that's going to happen pretty soon, is what it's sounding like. But then otherwise, it's just this async-ify thing. But hopefully, that should just be abstracted away. It sounds like there's a lot of work going into it right now, so it should be done in the next couple of months, whether any additional resources are added. So like our pseudo dynamic linking, that should work just fine via J-Code. There's nothing blocking that. So the only other thing is like you probably, yeah, I mean, the trickle of these upstream changes going into WASI SDK has been kind of frustrating, because there's various voices in there that, you know, from Madura, or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but others who want the next release of WASI SDK to have certain things and certain features and whatnot, and so it's been slow to get that next release out. But that next release will have all this support. And so then it would just be a matter of, you know, making a few changes to CPython, which I've already done. It's just upstreaming them to say, okay, actually we do have DL open, DLSim. And
oh, fantastic! I didn't know that all that work had gotten so far along that it's going to be in the next WASI SDK release. That's great.
Yeah, it's definitely is the when that release happens is, you know, it's just been, there's been logistic challenges there. It's like unfortunately, WASI SDK and WASI libc, it's so slow. But we're working on it. But
Poor
it
Dan.
does all work. It's just, you might have to use
Assuming Dan's not the fault.
yeah.
I'm gonna say poor Dan unless Dan's the problem, in which case, oh darn
No,
it, Dan.
Dan's not the problem. There's no one person who's a problem. It's just that there's a lot of voices, and getting everybody has their own little needs and perspectives, and getting them all aligned is just a challenge. There's no bad guys, but
yeah. Not hurting Kevin's cat though. Kevin's cat finally went away.
I'm guessing you saw the tail flip across my screen a few times a minute ago.
Oh yeah. Hey, mine was doing it earlier today. She's just off napping it. She's doing her nap time right now. So.
Yeah.
Okay, well, no, that's great. Okay, so if that's basically a solved problem, just waiting for WASI SDK release, so that really just means getting those libraries compiled to .a's for WebAssembly, figuring out what it takes to get WASI to run in the browser, and then whatever I have to do on the Python side just to make Python go.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that we could probably use help with is just having someone. I've already got a NumPy build with Kevin's help. That's pretty much done. I mean, I haven't like called every function in the API, but yeah, that's done. If you can come up with a list of like things that you consider must have, libraries to be built into this thing, and then have someone go off and build it. It sounds like Pandas is no big deal. I think just having someone spend a week on this to just, vet out that the libraries you guys want are doable with the tech we have right now would help get you an estimate, the estimate you need, an accurate estimate. So.
I can tell you, I was able to find the list.
Okay.
Matplotlib, NumPy, Pandas, Seaborn, and Stats Model. By the way, if you'll Google that, you'll probably quickly figure out who you might be able to work with.
Yeah, I mean, if they're all.
Then there's another set after that. Yeah, and then the full list: Tabulate, SymPy, Stats Model, Snowball Stemmer, Seaborn, SciPy is there. Scikit-learn.
SciPy, yeah. That's going to be your bottleneck right there.
Okay. Yeah, the Fortran bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it'd be great. I would love to see Microsoft or whoever spend some money on getting L4TRAN accelerated. It's one of the top priorities for L4TRAN. Andre, I think is his name.
Yep.
Was really friendly guy.
Yeah, he comes from the Python community, but so.
Yeah, so if you can kind of help him out, and that would be huge. I mean, that's everybody would celebrate that.
Okay, so basically, I'll just say, yeah, getting to tier 2, the WASI SDK release is going to take care of the DL sol, DL open, getting those libraries built, and the key part with that is either figuring out, working with those projects to just figure out what they have to do to get the compile right, and then for SciPy, getting some Fortran compiler that can emit WebAssembly, whether that's L4TRAN or something else.
Yep.
Okay. And that's really going to be the big stickler.
Yep.
Okay.
But yeah, you just need one person for 1 year, and the only requirement is they need to know how to write a Fortran compiler.
That's right.
Yeah.
Easy.
Okay, cool. I'll let them know then, and that's probably what it would take to make that work.
I'm sure there are other places that contributions would be welcome.
Oh yeah,
know what they are, but
yeah. I think it's just going to be a question of like, are they going to somehow try to convince my management chain to make me do this full time, or because I'll be out for 3 months and they want to move faster? And I don't think they're going to want to take me off of my VS Code responsibilities, get someone else to do it, and I just advise or what they'll want to do. But I think they're just wanting to know, like, what's the feasibility / timeline if we decided to do this, and could we throw people to accelerate at it? Because I will say the division that wants to do this has a very large budget. So
yeah. Well, yeah, I was actually just talking with Till this morning about how cool it would be to get some sort of funding or people involved in L4TRAN, and one of the things we talked about is maybe contracting Agalia, since they have a lot of compiler types of folks there. So yeah, if you don't have if you got more money than people in terms with these particular skill sets available, then that might be an option.
Okay.
So.
And I just remind me again, does anyone know off the top of their head if Pyodide supports SciPy? If they do, how the hell they pulled that off?
Yeah, so Hood can give you all the gritty details, or you can browse through, as I have, the horrendous stack of hacks they have in there, and Hood
We'll
will
talk
tell
my
you
ear
the
off if
same.
I ask.
But yeah, I mean it's cool, and they only have like 60% of the test suite passing, but apparently that's enough for a lot of useful use cases. But yeah, it basically involves this F to C, this old F to C transpiler that like it sounds like translates from Fortran to
Yep.
C.
C, yep, I know of it.
They have to do a bunch of pre-processing first to make it even F to C even understand it. Then after it goes through F to C, it gets translated a bunch of post-processing or mid-processing, whatever you want to call it. And so there's just a lot of steps to it. The good news is apparently the SciPy folks themselves are working on updating some of their more ancient Fortran code to kind of the newer language standard. So
New Fortran just sounds like an oxymoron.
Yeah, I know. But hopefully the convergence of that, maybe makes the F to C story a little less hacky, or L Fortran is able to, the convergence of all these efforts hopefully will get us somewhere. And it might just be a matter of like having someone with knowledge go, or even like talk to Andre and kind of get his perspective on it, or Hood, and just figure out what the best way forward is.
Yep. Okay. All right, awesome. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. We'll see if anything comes out of this, but at least I'll be able to give them an answer, and maybe that'll be enough to convince them. Like, yeah, no, we can throw something at this and get some money behind it.
Yeah, that would be so awesome.
I'm wondering if looking at, like, I don't know what help Guy might need with JCO or anything, but there might be room for more contributors there too.
Yeah, I will let them know.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. I think that's all the time we have. Until next time.
Thanks, everybody.